Hey everybody, it's the day after Christmas and I'm in Israel, and I wanted to make this video. I've actually been wanting to make this video for a while because I come across a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misinformation about a couple of things, about the time period that Jesus lived in, and what exactly the region he was from and lived his life in, what it was called at the time. And I also see a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of false information about who Jesus was. And a lot of different groups want to claim Jesus as their own. And I think that's understandable. But I'm more concerned about the historical truth and the historicity. And I'm not interested in making any sort of like theological arguments about Jesus. I'm not interested in that. I'm just sort of interested in clarifying or attempting to try and clarify who Jesus was, and from a historical perspective. I'm going to attempt to do that in this video. So the spark of this was an article that I wrote for the Times of Israel in 2019. And I'm going to read from that article. It's called "Jesus Was a Mediterranean Jew in the Jewish Homeland." And I also want to read an excerpt from a scholarly piece about what actually the region was called during Jesus's time. Because if you do a Google search, you'll see a lot of different sites, reputable sites, academic sites, that say he lived in Palestine. Sometimes they call it Jewish Palestine. But that's not really the case. Jesus was a Galilean. At the time of the first century, when he lived in Galilee, in Nazareth. So Jesus was born in Judea. He was born in Bethlehem, and but he grew up as a boy in Nazareth, and that's where he started preaching as a rabbi. And Nazareth is in Galilee, in the what's in the modern state of Israel, and the ancient Galilee of Jesus's time stretched all the way up to from northern Israel, modern Israel, to southern Lebanon, which was Phoenicia at the time, Syria-Phoenicia, and to the east, the north and the east of, and also the west of Galilee was pretty much surrounded by Syria-Phoenicia, and the southeastern part of Galilee bordered the Decapolis, and then the southern border was with Samaria, and then after Samaria, so just south of Samaria, was Judea, and you also had Perea. So, and then farther south was Egypt, Idumea, Nabatea. So, and then obviously the Mediterranean Sea. So, to the west. So, you know, at Jesus' time, it was, even the Romans did not call it Palestine, they called it Judea. It was a Roman province of Judea. They would rename it to Syria. Also, the Judean province did not initially include Galilee, Galanitis, which is today's Golan Heights in Israel, nor Perea, or the Decapolis. But the Romans renamed it to After the Bar Kochba, defeating the Bar Kochba revolt, the Emperor Hadrian, renamed it to Syria-Palestina after the Bar Kochba revolt in 135 CE. This was many years after Jesus' death. So Syria-Palestina, Palestinian Syria. But some people will argue that they'll say that Herodotus called it Palestine. And I'm going to read a journal article called "Some Observations on the Name of Palestine," Hebrew Union College, and volume 61, 1990, page 1. And I just want to kind of correct the record on that. So I'm just going to read from the abstract. So when Herodotus in the 5th century BCE mentions Palestine, he refers only to the coastal area, so called because it had been inhabited by the Philistines. Or he is speaking loosely, since the only part of the area that he had visited was apparently along the coast. During the Persian and Ptolemaic periods, the entire area between the Euphrates and the Mediterranean, from Cilicia to Egypt, is called Cold Syria. The term Judea, as used by such writers as Hecataeus of Abdera, Clearchus of Soli, and I'm probably not saying these names correctly, but just bear with me, and even anti-Jewish Manetho in the early 3rd century BCE, refers to that part of the area inhabited predominantly by Jews. That the official term for this region is Judea may be seen from military diplomas and other inscriptions, as well as from coins prior to the time of Hadrian. It is so designated in the official letter of the Emperor Claudius to the Alexandrians in the 1st century, as well as by such writers as Plutarch, Tacitus, and Suetonius at the beginning of the 2nd century. Moreover, writers on geography in the 1st century clearly differentiate Judea from Palestine. Even vicious anti-Jewish writers such as Apion, Charamon, and Seneca in the 1st century generally do not use the term Palestine. Jewish writers, notably Philo and Josephus, with few exceptions, refer to the land as Judea, reserving the name Palestine for the coastal area occupied by the Philistines. It is only centuries later, in perhaps the 5th century, that we find the name Palestine in a rabbinic work. Occurrences of the adjective Palestinian in such poets as Tibullus, Ovid, and Statius are due to metrical considerations. Palestinian as a noun does not occur in all antiquity. Coins of Hadrian issued before the Bar Kochba rebellion in 132 CE refer to Judea. Within a few years after the rebellion, the name of Judea was officially changed to Palestine, the aim being to obliterate the Jewish character of the land, with the name of the nearest tribe being applied to the entire area. Yet, even after the name was officially changed, some inscriptions, as well as such literary figures as Galen and Celsus in the 2nd century, Dio Cassius and Origen in the 3rd century, and Eusebius and Jerome in the 4th century, still refer to Judea. So again, that's just kind of what I wanted to clarify, that it's very important to understand that during Jesus' time, he did not live in Palestine. There was not a Jewish Palestine. And any even academic sources that say that are simply incorrect. You can make the argument after the Bar Kochba revolt, after Roman Emperor Hadrian renamed the Roman province to Syria-Palestine, you can make an argument that it was widely called Palestine. But it's very difficult to make that argument that the entire region, especially the Galilee region, where Jesus was preaching from, and he was his boyhood home in Nazareth, these types of places, no, they did not refer to themselves as Palestinian, and Jesus was not a Palestinian. So I just want to clarify that. Now, the second thing I want to clarify is, who was Jesus? Well, Jesus was a Mediterranean Jew in the Jewish homeland. And I'm just going to read from my article from 2019. I'll provide links as well. So Judaism arose in the ancient Eastern Mediterranean in the 2nd millennium BCE. And the heritage of modern Jews is rooted in what the Hebrew Bible calls Hayam Hagadol, the Great Sea. Jews were dispersed from their ancestral homeland of Judah during the Babylonian, Hellenistic, and Roman diasporas. It is in this historical context that we understand the origins of Jesus. Who was Yeshua? Well, that was his name. That was his name in Aramaic, Yeshua. And Aramaic was the spoken language of 1st century CE, Judea and Galilee. A Jew in the Jewish homeland, as described by biblical scholar John Dominic Crossan, author of The Historical Jesus, The Life of a Mediterranean Jewish Peasant. And that Jewish homeland was and is on the shores of the Eastern Mediterranean. Quote, he's of Mediterranean stock, and it's quite clear what that means. We see people like that in the world today, and that should end the matter, said Vincent Wimbush, an expert on ethnic interpretations of the Bible. And who are these modern populations of Mediterranean stock, similar to Jesus of Nazareth? Well, they include Western Diaspora Jews, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, Italkim, Romaniot, and North African. Also, Eastern Diaspora Jews, or Mizrahi, including Iraqi Jews, who could be the closest contemporary approximation to Second Temple period Jews, such as Jesus, according to Israeli biohistorian Yossi Nagar's research on skeletal remains. There have also been recent genetic studies showing that Levantine Christians, Druze, and Samaritans share a continuity with the ancient inhabitants of the Levant. Lebanese Christians in particular are very close genetically to the Roman period Levant, when Jesus was preaching in Galilee. A 2019 study found that Lebanese Christians are today genetically similar to local people who lived during the Roman period. And I would just add, from some research that I've done more recently, that did not include this article, that apparently the Galilee was sort of a bit of a, I want to call it a melting pot, but a salad bowl in a way of different ethnicities and cultures, and they were sort of welcoming different types of people, not just Jews. So apparently there's been there was a Phoenician presence there. Now the Phoenicians, the modern day Lebanese, are basically direct descendants of the Phoenicians, who were very closely aligned with the Israelites, and that's documented in the Bible with King Hiram. They helped to build the temple in Jerusalem, and with the cedar from Lebanon, and genetically they were very close. They were basically the same people, and because the Israelites and Phoenicians, for the most part, descend from the Canaanites, the Canaanite tribes of the region. And as do the modern populations of the Levant, and also Diaspora Jews, at least partially, descend from the Canaanites because of our Israelite Judean ancestry, mixed with the diaspora and admixture that we picked up over a very long period. So I'm going to continue reading the article. So other modern Mediterranean populations with a genetic affinity to Jesus include Israeli Arabs. And when I say Levantine Christians, I also include Palestinian Christians as well as Lebanese Christians. They're very, very, very close to people of that period. And also Jordanians, Syrians, Turks, Cypriots, Greeks, Cretans, Maltese, Sicilians, and South Italians. Author Martin Goodman writes in his book, Rome and Jerusalem, The Clash of Ancient Civilizations, that Jews generally look like non-Jews. The Romans often noted that foreign peoples looked different from themselves, but apart from the male circumcision, they never noted this of the Jews. In other words, Jews and Romans were indistinguishable, including Jesus. And that could be said of today's Mediterranean populations, who often are hard to tell apart, whether Ashkenazi Jew, Sicilian Christian, or Lebanese Muslim. So anyway, I just wanted to try to get that across. I'm attempting to. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them in the comment section. And if I'm wrong about any of this, please let me know. I want to be corrected, because I'm just attempting to get historical accurate information about a couple things. That there was no Palestine during Jesus's time. He was a Galilean Jew, and he was not a Palestinian Jew. There was no Palestine. And he was a Mediterranean Jew. He was similar to modern day Mediterranean, Middle Eastern populations from the Levant and the Mediterranean basin. And so one more thing I just wanted to add was that you can possibly find sort of very closely the modern descendants of the people who lived in the Galilee during Jesus's time. If you look at the town of Pekin, which is now Druze town, but up until the 1930s, before the Arab riots, drove Jewish families to Hadera, except for the one family, the Zenati family, who came back to Pekin. They claim continuous descent from the Second Temple period. So, the Zenatis and the other Jewish families of Pekin, if I'm saying that correctly, would have been very similar to Jesus and the people around him, the Jews of the time. So anyway, thank you for watching.